Funding for NEOtropolis has been provided by the following.
Hello, I'm Lester Lefton. Kent State University is proud to sponsor NEOtropolis, a program that looks at the forces that impact the region. Kent State is one of those forces. As a center of educational excellence and as an economic development engine, our efforts at Kent State have a powerful and positive impact on the region through research and development, the arts and innovation, and preparing our graduates to compete in the global marketplace. I hope you enjoy the program, and I invite you to learn more about Kent State University.
The John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, supporting transformational ideas that promote informed and engaged communities.
Hello and welcome to NEOtropolis, the show that brings you stories about the forces of technology, globalization, and diversity, how they affect our lives right here in Northeast Ohio. I'm your host, Luke Frazier. Tonight, we're going to consider a little something extra, stories about technologies combining. We take a look at a hybrid garbage truck, hear from a mechanic who really doesn't like cars, and consider a candle that once burned in space, but now helps NASA scientists in Brook Park. Plus, we'll learn about the mashup of art and technology and discuss the unwanted extras of social media with Dr. Aaron Hollenbaugh. NEOtropolis is all about the extras. We'll even share some with you. Tonight's episode is called A Little Something Extra. Joining me now is NEOtropolis contributor Stacy Shelton, blogger and performance consultant.
Yes.
How are you?
Great. How are you?
Excellent. So we asked a question this week, and we got a bunch of responses. What was our question about this little something extra?
Our question was, what technology has become so important to your daily routine that you find it hard to believe that you ever got along without it? And then what would happen if you didn't have it?
Yeah. Okay, well, before we hear from anyone else, what would you say? What has become so key to you?
I'd have to say my iPad and the cloud.
Okay, the cloud being that everywhere where things are stored and you can access them anywhere, because you travel,
anything.
right?
I do.
Yeah, okay. Well, what did we hear this week from viewers?
Actually, we got a great response from a lot of people. Sharina said music over the internet.
Oh, absolutely.
So Pandora, Spotify, those kind of things. Annette said her smartphone. Mm-hmm. So lots of weight in for smartphones. Elena also said all of her apps.
Yeah.
So the fact that she can shop and find recipes and things like that.
Is it the phone that's smart or the person using it that's smart?
I think it's a combination of both.
Good. In your case, I'm sure it's both.
It's me.
Excellente. Good. All right, Stacy. Listen, if you want to weigh in tonight, there's all kinds of social media, of course, but you can also text. Text us at 450-345-6745. That's 440-345-6745. Thanks, Stacy. We'll talk to you later.
Be part of the conversation. Follow us on Twitter at NEOtropolis TV and on Facebook, YouTube, and Google+. When you visit neotropolis.org, check out the archives and sign up for our e-newsletter.
You know, one way that technology provides a little something extra, actually it can be a whole lot extra, is to take technological advancements in like advanced aerospace, as in rockets, and translate it into practical applications. Here's what I found by visiting the NASA Glenn Research Center. You know, when you think of NASA, you think of rockets, and you think of technology that just goes up in space, right? But today we're going to talk to people who will tell us how these technologies turn into commercial applications and go to the marketplace. I look at something like this, it's like very fancy. But now I'm going to turn to Howard Ross. Howard, how are you today?
Good to see you.
Excellent. Tell me your title here at NASA.
I'm the Chief Technologist here at NASA Glenn Research Center.
Excellent. Well, let's start with what we just looked at, this face mask. Obviously, it's for rocket and pilots, but does it have anything to do with how we think of day-to-day life in Northeast Ohio?
This, which is a metabolic analyzer, simply a way to talk about how people breathe, lung function. We're actually working with Summa Health right now in using this to help them assess when patients are ill with lung function problems. Are they making progress or not?
Tell me what this is really going to do for us.
This is a blade that is a part of a jet engine. We worked with a small business in Cincinnati, Ohio, that came up with a surface coating that makes this particular piece of hardware much more rugged. By lasting longer, much less maintenance. These can cost $1,000 to $4,000 each, so by having it last longer, you can save $100,000.
Now, you told me before that this blade, if it gets thrown out of an engine, this little stuff, this very lightweight stuff, will stop it. Throw that blade at here.
Okay. You can see it deform,
right?
And it's not breaking through to the other side. We've been able to work with Boeing and have this particular material be the fan case, a composite fan case, replacing aluminum with this lightweight material.
Cool. What is this? This looks like a little mouse cage or something here.
So this is
a better mouse trap.
So this relates to that mask you were holding up, a little bit ago. This is hardware that flew on the shuttle and eventually on the Russian Mir space station. And it's the beginning of a story that ends up in that mask that we were talking about. And it all started with a hallway conversation that I had with a few graduate students. Would a candle burn in 0G? What we were able to show, a birthday candle that would burn about 10 minutes here on Earth, burned for 45 minutes on the Mir space station. So it not only burned, but it burned a lot longer. It was very weak. It was round and blue instead of the pointed shape that we're used to.
And now we have something, now even I recognize this. It looks like a tire, but a tire that's going to let a lot of water and stuff through.
Yep, this is affectionately known as the spring tire or moon tire. We worked with Goodyear in Akron. Part coming back to Earth with this one is the fact that it returns most of the energy, it deforms, then gives it back, could lead to better fuel economy.
And I like this idea of this because if it gets better mileage, like you said, then it's going to help me fill up and not have to spend $60.
So you have a little car.
You have so much to say about how this stuff can be applied, how it can bring together the highest technology with stuff that we see every day.
That's our purpose. It's not just all the work in space. It's actually the money is spent here, the people work here, and the benefits come back to us here.
Excellent. Thank you. There's a lot of stuff going on at NASA that they actually take into all kinds of applications with insulation and different kinds of things for our Northeast Ohio winters. That would be excellent. So joining me now to talk about the art and technology mixture is James Krause. He is the Director of Programming at Ingenuity Festival.
That's right.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for
so, the thing is that we talk about, art is here, and then there's some kind of barrier, and then there's technology. But really, it's not that way.
No, I mean, there's a whole continuum. You have artists who are working in multimedia, particularly with things like the iPad and iPhones, and with the internet. Technology it's really it's at our fingertips. But then you also have a group of people who are engineers and doctors who are working in highly technological fields, are also finding the art in what they do and want to express that as well.
Yeah. So it's that tired paradigm of either you're kind of about function and about manufacturing, but somehow that doesn't intersect with art. But that's that really isn't true today.
Right. And it's not. I mean, today the kinds of technologies that are out there, it's so accessible. My 3-year-old is a huge fan of the iPad, and he can get in there and turn it on and explore and look at photographs. That was just unheard of before for a 3-year-old to be able to interface with technology in that way.
So is that now, you would say that the technology would become the babysitter, or the TV would, but now it's the iPad?
I mean, in a lot of ways, yes, but I think in some more productive ways.
Yeah.
There's a lot more chance for exploration. But of course, in our house, we try to reduce the amount of screen time.
Absolutely. Well, before we get into, you're going to tell me about Ingenuity Festival this year and what's happening. I want to go to a couple pictures. This first one here that we're going to see are these hearts that are actually, you're telling me, are being informed by tweets.
Right, yeah. So this was at last year's festival. This is an artistic duo, Benitez Vogel, and they visitors to Ingenuity Fest could actually tweet hashtag Ingenuity Fest, and those hearts started out with half lit one heart, and then eventually all 4 hearts were lit up over the course of the weekend. So it was kind of fun for people to see. They could impact the art, but it was also a large art display there at Ingenuity Fest that could be appreciated on its own.
So the work of art is being made even as the technology is just being done in the surrounding area.
Exactly, yeah, and I think that's really important. There are the internet has kind of given us a different sphere, a different forum to experience art. Not just in terms of even as we're sitting here talking, there are people who are tweeting or emailing. There's a whole other sort of level of subtext going on.
That's right. Well, I hope people are texting right now to 440-345-6745 and telling us what they think about our question: what technology you can't believe you used to do without. How would you answer that?
I think definitely the internet. For me, I mean, to be able to look up. I mean, not just to look up new information, but to be able to look up and get perspective on something that happened 100 years ago, and draw up pictures on it, get firsthand accounts. I think that's just by far, just something I couldn't have imagined when I was growing up.
The next picture is a dancer, and she's involved with connective technology. There, you were telling me about it before the show. What is going on here?
Yeah, so this is a piece where this is the Kinect gaming system, and there's an artist, Jason Walters, who is using the Kinect gaming system, but in an entirely different way. So he's interpreting the emotions of the dancer projected up on the wall. And that piece actually, that artist then actually went on to South by Southwest and is actually now working in London for the Olympics. So it's really somebody taking something like the Kinect gaming system, and we're seeing. I mean, Jason is one artist, but we're seeing so many artists working with that medium. And Jason happens to be an IT professional, kind of turned artist, but there are also dancers working with the technology, obviously being able to take the whole medium of movement up to a whole different level.
And that's exactly it, right? Is that if there's this artistic temperament or artistic expression, well, there's lots of canvases, so to speak, that it can be displayed on.
Right, absolutely. And I think that that piece is a great example where the audience at Ingenuity Fest, they have a chance to interact with the art, but then we can also bring a dancer in, and she's going to bring a whole other level of interpretation to it and expertise to it.
I think we have one more picture. It is of a stage, and then the skyline in the background, and there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, so this is Squonk Opera, and you may know Squonk Opera was on America's Got Talent, I think, last season.
We're in good company. NEOtropolis, America's Got Talent.
There you go. They're kind of an interesting group because they're a very sort of, in terms of their music, they're very, very quirky, almost avant-garde opera. But they also do these huge spectacles where they'll come in and completely transform an area. So that shot was of the skyline of Cleveland, the Superior Viaduct, which is a sort of little used sort of performance platform in the city, and it just transformed the city.
Yeah. James, I could talk all night about this stuff. I want to definitely have you back to talk a little bit more about what happened this year at Ingenuity Festival. Sure. But I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. So what we're going to do next is we're going to pick up about how garbage can be picked up while saving gas. I want to mention that if you'd like to see that whole piece on the NASA Glenn Research Center, you can go up onto NEOtropolis.org and you'll be able to find it there. But now, when you hear about a garbage truck rumbling and rattling down your street, you probably don't think of hydraulic pumps, but maybe you should. Here's Jennifer Boris with an excerpt from a story about hybrid garbage trucks.
We are at Parker's global headquarters in Mayfield Heights, where they've developed the hydraulic hybrid system. It's an innovative technology that has both cost savings and environmental benefits, and it is definitely not business as usual.
Parker is a global public company. We're a Fortune 500 company, about $10 billion in sales, 55,000 employees. We're positioned in 46 countries around the globe.
John Treharn, Vice President of Business Development for Parker's Hydraulic Hybrid Group, says it is one of the larger groups within the company.
We are a group that produces hydraulic components, subsystems, and systems for the on-road, the off-road, and the industrial markets. Those components consist of pumps, motors, cylinders, accumulators, mobile electronics, and a variety of other products that go into motion control solutions.
One of the most recent developments is the hydraulic hybrid system.
Parker has developed a system that uses hydraulic pumps and accumulators instead of batteries and electric motors to supplement the engine, recover braking energy, and make the trucks more efficient.
Vance Zanardelli is the business unit manager for energy recovery for Parker Hydraulics, working to develop and commercialize hydraulic hybrids for on-road vehicles. He says while other competitors have done simpler hydraulic launch assist systems, Parker has developed the world's first advanced series system.
What's unique about that is it enables us to recover virtually all of the braking energy and actually decouple or disconnect the engine from the rear axle so that when we run the engine, we only run it in its sort of operational sweet spot, so it's very efficient.
It's different than what you may think of in other hybrid vehicles.
Most people are probably used to electric hybrids like they'd have in a Ford Fusion or maybe a Toyota Prius, where you use batteries and electric motors to help supplement the gasoline engine. Well, that works great for cars, but not so great for heavy trucks because of all the power requirements.
Vance says Parker has been working on facets of the system for over 20 years, starting with a group formed out of Sweden building advanced pumps.
But we really took a hard and a firm approach and reinvigorated the program, about 5-6 years ago. And so we've been working diligently now for about 6 years to bring this particular system to production.
Right now we're in the first stages of launch on the production. We have a pre-production fleet down in the Miami-Dade, and Hialeah area. They helped us finalize our reliability goals, and they're launching it. And then we also have some orders now coming in from Austin, Texas, and we're really out working with the municipalities and trying to get mass adoption across North America.
So far, results from these trucks have been impressive.
Well, what we're finding is that in our initial application, our first application is actually in residential garbage trucks, right? They're big, they're heavy, they start and stop a lot. And we're finding fuel savings of between 40 and 50% with our initial pre-production fleet customers. So that's equivalent for people that are used to miles per gallon. That's almost like doubling your miles per gallon. It's really a tremendous savings.
You know, if you think about it, Northeast Ohio air could be a whole lot cleaner if all our garbage trucks were like those beauties. If you'd like to see the rest of the story on Parker Engineering, check it out at NEOtropolis.org. So from how your personal trash gets dealt with by combining technologies, we're going to go to how your interpersonal communication is affected by social media with Dr. Erin Hollenbaugh, NEOtropolis communicator. Contributor.
And communicator.
You see, I was so worried about getting that tie-in there.
Okay.
So how are you?
I'm great. How are
you? Excellent. So let's talk about this notion of social media adding something extra to our communication.
Yeah, I think that when you brought that question to me originally, when you invited me to be on the show, the first thing I thought of was this idea that we're just so constantly connected to so many people. You know, at very few moments in the day, other than maybe in the shower, are we not accessible to someone other than through face-to-face communication. And so I think that social media does a lot to add that to our lives, this constant connection, but I think it also takes something away at the same time.
Yeah, so there's these things that are generated. A lot of them very positive, very helpful, very authentic. But then there's also things that come out of it that are these byproducts almost.
Yeah, unfortunately so. I think that sometimes the communication can lose a sense of genuineness, if that's a word. It's not necessarily always as connected as it might be, ironically enough, if we were face to face, right? Yeah. I mean, it's hard to express, for example, sympathy over the loss of a loved one. A colleague and I are going to work on a study this summer looking at how we communicate sympathy and empathy for people when they're going through hard times through social media. And in some ways, I've used that as kind of an out, not really knowing what I would say if I called someone on a more traditional type of media and instead thought, well, I can craft this text version of a message and put it on Facebook.
Like e-cards. I mean, sometimes you get an e-card, and I understand the people's motivation behind it, and I can welcome that.
Right.
But the dancing daisy or the this and that. It's just, I mean, is that really what they were thinking in their mind would help? Over the hump? Well,
the classic phrase of Marshall McLuhan back in the 60s, the medium is the message, I think is the theme of what I'd like to talk about here, or what I'm talking about. This idea that it's also the medium through which you choose. That says a lot about the message that you're displaying. I mean, maybe sometime in the future people will propose to one another through text messaging, but as of yet, it still seems to be reserved for face-to-face.
Well, there's definitely the breakup by text. I mean, you hear about that. And the other research you're doing or getting ready to do, I think, is this idea of drunk dialing. Talk about that.
Yeah, it's some research that we've done for the past couple of years. My colleague, Dr. Amber Ferris, and I, we looked into the impact of drunk dialing on people's social networks and also different motivations for drunk dialing, why you might do that. We found lots of really cool stuff, things like, to pass time, the classic booty call. Am I allowed to say that on PBS?
I don't know, but you did.
You know, or it's live television. You know, or these other sorts of maybe frivolous kinds of things. But then again, there's also the more realistic, like to get in contact with someone I haven't talked to in a long time, or you know, because it sparked a memory. I heard a song that made me think of them.
So there's that, you know, the tool of social media and the way that it can spread communication, but it's also this extra of, you know, there's a risk there that you're going to say something, you're going to display something that's not very pleasant.
And then it's archived, right?
And it's archived, right.
And then it becomes the text message that goes up on, you know, a website of look at this ridiculous thing that someone said, or it gets forwarded and out of context. And so I think the stakes are higher when we use social media. And yet I think that something in our brains sort of clicks off at the same time.
Yeah, so it's about maybe the judicious use of this technology, as with all things.
Sure.
But what I appreciate about research, the kind of research you're doing and that others in the field do, is really try to break down some of those high concepts of communication into what it looks like for us.
Yeah. I mean, I think research is nothing if not applicable, right? I mean, what good is it if it doesn't relate to people's everyday lives? That's why I love studying communication and interpersonal communication in particular, is because students don't have to wait until they get their dream job, you know, to apply those concepts. They get to think about it in the here and now.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it, and we'll have you back, I'm sure. It's always interesting to hear about your research, and we will be back right after this. Okay, here we are, and we're going to be back right after this. Okay. I think we have some more time. We have some more time? Oh, actually, okay. I gotcha. You know, technology can be a double-edged sword. I love my car. I drive all the time, but I know it leaves a carbon footprint and has stuff that needs to be thrown away on it. But there's people who are looking at cars in a slightly different way.
I'm Sam Bell. This is the Lusty Wrench. The first thing I should say about the modern automobile is it's an imperfect solution to a very intractable problem. It is by no means sustainable. The personal automobile really is a bad idea. We were faced with an industry which is very inherently dirty. There's a lot of waste in this industry. What are we going to do with the used parts when we're done with them? How can we get rid of them? What do we do with them? What do we do with the used oil? That became enough of a question for me that I really tried to build an answer into the business. We're trying to see to it that the waste stream is managed as responsibly as we are able to figure out how to do. We're hopeful that there will be a technological or a series of technological and perhaps societal changes which will allow us to get away from this model, which doesn't work, which cannot work in the long term, and so be able to do something that is sustainable, something that is more truly livable. Largely recycling is certainly the biggest factor of all. We have a lot of very progressive people in our customer base, and they're willing to put up with the extra stuff that it requires on our part and on their part in order to pull this off, in order to make this an eco-conscious auto repair facility, and in order to try and stave off that day of reckoning for the whole planet. I sign every email that I send with "check your tire inflations." That's my tagline. That's the one thing that we can all do that makes such a huge difference. We could save, the figure is around 200 million barrels of oil a year nationally by checking tire inflations. So that's just waste. When you get in your car, put on your seatbelt, start it up, go. Don't start it up and sit there. That's wasteful. Plan your trips ahead. I ride my bike every day, everywhere I go. I drive fewer than 1,000 miles a year in my personal car. Think about whether you could maybe use a more fuel-efficient vehicle. Rent a car for that vacation. It's, you know, you'll probably save enough in fuel costs throughout the year that you can easily afford the rental. I have a new book out. It's called The Auto Emissions Bible. The subtitle is How to Pass the Vehicle Emissions Test.
Well, listen, I thank you very much. I'm going to go check my tire inflation pressure right now.
Okay.
The recommendation
That's the man.
of this guy right here.
That's the man.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Okay.
And that was a piece on the Lusty Wrench and eco-conscious auto repair. We had a little thing going into it where I wasn't telling you what it was. So that was Sam Bell. Thanks to Travis Pollard for doing such a nice piece, too. And it really is the kind of place that generates a little less guilt about adding to the carbon footprint in Northeast Ohio. So finally tonight, let's hear what your thoughts were on our audience question we threw out there. Stacy, how are you?
Great.
Excellent. Let me tell me what you heard.
Well, we had a lot of action today on the board. So Jay talked about going back to the cell phone, that, he found it impossible that we couldn't communicate before that. So now we have this constant communication. John weighed in and talked about the fact that portable music, so from the evolution to the Walkman, to the Discman, to the iPod, talked about that. And Bob said his smartphone. He said he is the smartest person in the room with his smartphone in his hand.
That was funny. Recently, someone was able to look something up right away. It's like you don't get into long arguments anymore.
Oh, no.
Because someone can just look it up.
Yeah, I'm right.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me. I mean, really, you think about how our lives are so altered by all this stuff, and you think about going back. I mean, my son will never know how to use a manual typewriter. No way.
No.
I mean, it's just like, and there's other ways that I can completely plug in and be connected with family and friends too.
Yeah,
so
it's really cool. And a couple more people weighed in and said their iPads, their iPhones. Yep. I was wondering if a martini shaker counted as technology.
Well, we'd have to see. All right, thank you, Stacy, and thank you for joining us tonight. In 2 weeks, we'll be talking about wind and wind energy, so you can join us for that. Stay in touch at neotropolis.org. I'm Luke Frazier. Good night from Neotropolis.
Funding for NEOtropolis has been provided by the following.
I'm a process engineer at a high-tech company in Ohio. We're developing cool new liquid crystal devices, like the Boogie Board tablet. It's based on technology created at Kent State University. Yeah, the research teams at Kent State are always coming up with discoveries. Discoveries that end up in real-world products. In fact, you'd be amazed at all the great things coming out of Kent State. I should know, I'm one of them. My name is Diaz McDaniel, and I'm a proud graduate of Kent State University.
The John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, supporting transformational ideas that promote informed and engaged communities.